If the person watching this is a straight male, then something very important to know may have just happened in your brain. And I am making this video to show you what that thing is and will prove to you that it has the potential in varying degrees to harm you. I will be providing neuroscientific evidence to validate this claim and will give the links to all of the following studies I cite in the description below. But first things first, I am not bringing this to your attention to be the biggest buzzkill of 2017. If you want to get your rocks off and fap to porn, go right ahead. And in no way do I want the government to regulate pornography in any way at all. I am also not coming at this from a religious perspective. I adhere to no faith, so when I speak about the potential for harm that internet pornography has on the brain, try if you can to separate me from the right-wing fundamentalists who sound similar. Here's the key difference. They use scripture and claim a moral precipice. Some even go as far as to regulate through the state the numbers of fingers that are allowed to be inserted into an orifice. So please understand that those authoritarian, God-fearing punks are different from me because I am not coming from a place of supposed moral truth. This is not a moral argument. I am merely setting up a discussion from a place of science to explain a truth that no one talks about. It's important in this case to look specifically at the neuroscience because everything I'm going to say has to do with the brain. So what have our brains told us so far about internet pornography? And why do I seem more worried about men and not women? Does porn cause brain damage? Is it addictive? Well, first of all, we need to acknowledge that the answer to all of these questions exists on a spectrum. People are different. Some are prone to addictive tendencies. They get addicted to drugs, to alcohol, even to food or gambling, meaning they continue to do certain behaviors even after those behaviors have caused them or other ones around them harm. Whether you think the term addiction, broadly speaking, is used too often to excuse weak wills is not the point. Because we could, for the sake of argument, call it weak willpower, a disorder, an illness. We could even just say that people are being irresponsible when they drink too much, eat too much, or use too much porn. The term doesn't matter at all. You can call it whatever you want. What's important is the continuous action of a behavior, even after that behavior has harmed oneself or others. And to classify this behavior, I will use the word addiction. But my caveat was needed because in the case of addiction, many people get distracted by the word itself and continually divert attention away from the problem to debate semantics. This is not about the word addiction. I understand everyone has strong opinions on this. So I'm attempting to emphasize the definition because no one can deny that many people fall prey to behaviors they desperately wish they could stop. So by no means am I saying that every man who uses porn is doomed to addiction, but the problem is more widespread than you might think. Which leads me to my argument. Men masturbating to internet pornography is a drug that utilizes and oversensitizes the reward circuitry in our brains, and in many cases reduces frontal lobe activity, leading to less self-control and inevitably causing addiction. This then leads to lower levels of testosterone and can raise levels of emotional and sexual insecurity, irritability, and compulsive behaviors. Porn addiction is one of the fastest growing health epidemics in the world. Now, let me explain why I've made this claim, and if I haven't convinced you by the end of this video, provide me counter-evidence that refutes the evidence I provide, and I will change my mind in a heartbeat. But until then, let's begin with plastic. What can plastic do? Well, it can be molded, sculpted, or modified. Plastic can change. And although this may sound strange at first, our brains are, at least in this regard, just like plastic. The brain itself can be changed. Even just the act of thinking or a bit of learning can change both the brain's functional anatomy from top to bottom. This is called neuroplasticity. Its roots of discovery was during the 1950s, when researchers were experimenting with animal brains. A study in 2000 discovered that taxi drivers have a larger hippocampus, a brain structure known to be heavily involved in learning routes and visual spatial awareness. I will now present you with two studies under the banner of neuroplasticity and porn addiction, one that validates my point and the other that supposedly debunks it. The first study, Neuroscience of Internet Pornography Addiction. This was published in 2015 in the Journal of Behavioral Science by Todd Love and 4 other neuroscientists, in which they conducted an overview of every neuroscientific study on internet addiction. Quote, "The review leads to the conclusion that internet pornography addiction fits into the addiction framework and shares similar basic mechanisms with substance addiction. There is a glut of evidence that natural rewards are capable of inducing plasticity in addiction-related circuitry. Olson cited fMRI studies showing gambling, shopping, orgasms, video games, and the sight of appetizing food to activate the mesocorticolimbic system and extended amygdala in the same manner as do drugs of abuse. It also claims that, quote, some internet activities, because of their power to deliver unending stimulation and activation of the reward system, are thought to constitute supernormal stimuli, which helps to explain why users whose brains manifest addiction-related changes get caught in their pathological pursuit. Now, our next study questions the existence of sexual addiction. Psychologist Brian Mustansky published it in 2013 with the headline reading, a new study showed the brain's responses to pornography is different than drugs. In this study, they were looking for the P300, a term that was coined by previous neuroimaging work explaining the identical correlation in the brain when watching pornography to that of drug abuse. They took men who were attracted to the opposite sex and personally struggling with watching too much internet porn, and then showed them an assortment of images. The images were carefully selected to evoke pleasant and unpleasant feelings. Some pictures included dismembered bodies, skiers, and sex. The erotic pictures included romantic kissing, whereas other pictures showed explicit intercourse between one man and one woman. And wouldn't you know, the brain did not react to the erotic images the way it would with drugs. It was different, not as powerful. But why did you only show images? Why did you not show actual high-speed internet pornography? It would seem that if a man who's been watching porn for years wouldn't show the same response from a still picture. In my view, it's the addictive equivalent of giving a cocaine addict a sip of coffee. But let's put that to the side. What were the pictures he saw before the ones that showed kissing and caressing? Dismembered bodies. I know that if I just saw someone's head chopped off or arm cut into, the last thing I'd want to do is jingle my jolly. But let's even put that to the side. This man was in a hospital with people watching him. It certainly isn't the best environment to promote a mood of sexuality. So think about it. These subjects were looking at pictures of bloody bodies on a hospital bed surrounded by doctors who were staring at them. No videos, just pictures, and you wonder why they didn't get excited. In my view, they should do it again, but include the 4 factors I just emphasized. Give the man a video, not a picture. Don't show him dead bodies. And do it at his house, in his room, and have a study group. The results will be different. That is my hypothesis. And this is one of the only studies that countered the overwhelming consensus among the neuroscientific community that porn affects the brain just like drugs. And just think about it for a second. Given that drugs don't actually do anything other than alter the already existing chemistry in the brain, so the idea that technology can stimulate it into creating its own highs and lows is a very rational position. But I can tell you're still not convinced. Then maybe these will convince you. In the past 3 years alone, 29 scientific studies on porn's relationship to the brain have been published, and not one of them refutes the claim of a correlation of compulsivity and addiction in relation to continual consumption of pornography. But you may still be saying, so what? It's not a big deal. Porn can be addictive. Most people aren't addicted to it, though. To which I would completely and fundamentally disagree with you. I am arguing that this is happening to a lot of men all over the world and in very alarming numbers. Too many men are addicted to pornography. But because of the amount of shame and public embarrassment that comes with the behavior, they do not speak out. And on top of that, many don't even know they're addicted because they haven't tried to stop. Let's take a trip to one website called nofap.com, which is a subreddit of a community that comes together to avoid the use of pornography. I was very shocked to find out that it was not a small forum of individuals, but hundreds of thousands of people, mainly men ranging from the ages of 18 to 55. And this doesn't even include all of the other people who can't stop but have just never heard of this website. But the most eye-opening thing of all are the personal stories. The forum is filled with thousands of stories about the insanities they've went through with porn addiction, the families they've lost and gained and lost and gained. We can also look to some of the strange things occurring in Japan. They're not having sex. A report from The Guardian probing into the issue sources evidence that 61% of unmarried men aged 18 to 34 were not in a romantic relationship, and a third of the people under the age of 30 had never dated at all. One of Japan's authorities on love and relationships, Ayama, said that many are turning to what Ayama terms pot noodle love, easy or instant gratification in the form of casual sex, short-term trysts, and the usual technological suspects. Online porn, virtual reality girlfriends, and anime cartoons. No one yet knows for sure why Japanese men aren't interested in sex anymore, but this story in particular emphasizes, if nothing else, that with the drastic rise of technology and fast access to virtual instant gratification, Japanese men are becoming emasculated by their environmental surroundings, and so are we. A recurring theme within the nofap community is that when they stop watching porn, they feel more confident, stronger, and more emotionally secure. They say they feel cleaner and end up having more sex with real women. We know that porn changes the brain, and we're beginning to realize that it may also change our hormones, giving men low T, which can further exacerbate feelings of irritability and restlessness, and the cycle continues. And why have I been focusing on men so much and not women? Because men are more aroused by visual stimuli than women are. Men are genetically predisposed to find women and have sex with them, so to have a laptop that provides high-speed internet porn with an endless supply of videos to cater for whatever fantasy he desires, it's no wonder so many are addicted.